Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. The biggest threat to your soul isn't Satan. It's not politics, not culture, not them. It's what lives in you. Welcome back, recruit. Today, we'll talk about enemies. And in this war, not every enemy is outside the gates. Some are hiding in your uniform. There are two war fronts, the external battles and the internal battles. James 4:1, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Let that land for a second. The first war isn't external, it's internal. Boot camp reveals this. That discipline isn't just beating the devil. It's about recognizing when you've become your own saboteur. The enemies within. Let's name them. Get surgical. It's ego, fear, apathy, bitterness, and self-pity. Let's break down each one of them. Ego, the self that demands attention. You want recognition. You want control. I know best. They owe me. I don't need anyone. But ego is a tyrant disguised as confidence. Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before stumbling. Your ego can't be trained. It must be crucified. Fear, the voice that says, play it safe, don't speak up. What if I fail? But 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-discipline. Fear is a prophet of false outcomes. You must learn to hear it and then override it. Apathy. This one's a silent killer. You're not angry, not hostile, just numb. I'll pray later. It's not that deep. Someone else will do it. But in war, passivity is betrayal. Revelation 3:16. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Bitterness, that slow burning poison you sip to spite your enemy. Hebrews 12:15. Seeing to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springing up causes trouble, and by it many be defiled. Bitterness doesn't just infect you. It spreads, trains others in resentment. Self-pity. This one wears a cloak of humility, but it's ego in disguise. Why me? No one sees me. God must have forgotten about me. But you are not a victim. You are a soldier in formation. Enemies without. Recognizing external attacks. There are outside forces too. Temptations, spiritual assignments, deceptive ideologies. Jesus called Satan the father of lies. John 8:44. And lies don't look like monsters. They look like half-truths. Common external enemies. Distraction. It pulls your attention from purpose. Compromise. It says just once. Comparison. It says you're behind. Seduction. It says you deserve this. False peace. It says don't stir the waters. And each of these, they come dressed like comfort, but carry the scent of death. Jesus shows us both battles. In the wilderness, Jesus faced both battlefronts. He was hungry, the internal urge. He was tempted, the external deception. He was alone, the emotional vulnerability. But how did he win? It is written. He didn't wrestle. He declared truth. This is your model. Discern the voice. Expose the lie. Respond with what's written. Philosophical echoes. Even philosophy knows this war. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living, because an unexamined mind becomes an unarmed one." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Even the Stoics knew the battlefield is within first, then without. Field briefing, your personal inventory. Let's pause and reflect. Which enemy are you currently battling? The enemy? Ego. The symptoms? Self-righteousness. Controlling. The counter-training? Silence. Submission. The enemy? Fear. The symptoms? Paralysis. Anxiety. The counter-training? Trust reps. Declaration. The enemy? Apathy. The symptoms? Numbness. Delaying. The counter-training? Movement. Obedience. The enemy? Bitterness. The symptoms? Passive aggression. Blaming. The counter-training? Forgiveness. Release. The enemy? Self-pity. The symptoms? Why me? Spiraling. The counter-training? Gratitude. Service. Call it by name. Bring it into the light and train against it. Your enemy is not always a demon. Sometimes it's a thought. Sometimes it's a wound. Sometimes it's a story you keep telling yourself. But here's the hope. 1 John 4:4. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You are not alone. You are not outnumbered. And you are not powerless. You've been given authority, but authority only flows through clarity. Next time, we'll talk about sacred rhythm. Why your days and nights are more than routine. They're part of your formation. Until then, expose the enemy. Refuse the lie. Guard the gates. This is Metaphysical Boot Camp. Now to Protocol 5. Practice the presence of death. Death is not the end. It is the unveiling. The world runs from death, but the awakened walk toward it. You're not promised 80 years. You're not even promised tomorrow. But the fear of death keeps most people in chains, afraid to choose a side. What if I died tonight? The truth is, you're not training for this world. You're training to leave it. Objective. View death not as an end, but a doorway to deployment. Exercise. Write your own death scene. Describe your final day, your departure. Who claims you? What do you regret? Imagine your final breath. Who do you become when there's no one left to impress? This is not morbidity. It's preparation. The same way a warrior sharpens his sword before battle. Ask, if I died today, would I have trained well? Would my soul rise clean or still in boot camp? What unfinished things truly matter? What am I afraid of losing that I never really owned? The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. Ecclesiastes 7:2. Write your own last day scene today. Ask, what would I regret? Who would I forgive? What would I finally stop chasing? Read Ecclesiastes 7. You are never meant to live forever in this skin, but what you build in this life decides who you are in the next. Die with clarity. Live with purpose. Living Protocol 5 in the real world. Practice the presence of death. In the modern world, death is the last taboo. We hide it in hospital rooms. euphemize it in language, distract ourselves from it with endless noise. But ignoring death doesn't protect us. It numbs us. Protocol 5 asks us not to obsess over death, but to befriend it, to let it become a mirror, not a monster. When we remember we're going to die, trivial things start to fall away. The petty arguments, the ego battles, the need to impress. Suddenly it matters more that you love freely, forgive freely, and align your life with what you were made for. This is why monks meditate in graveyards. This is why Scripture says, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Psalms 90:12. Imagine how different your week would look if you lived with your mortality in mind. Would you doom scroll through hours of distraction? Would you still stay silent instead of saying, I forgive you, or I love you? Would you still chase clout instead of purpose? Try this. Write your eulogy. Ask yourself, what do I want to be remembered for? What unfinished business would I regret leaving behind? When you start each day aware that it could be your last, you begin to live not fearfully, but fiercely present. You begin to live in such a way that when death comes, it doesn't interrupt you, it completes you. Remember, the point is not to be afraid of death. The point is to train for it, because when it arrives, and it will, you want your soul to stand up like a soldier, ready to go home. Here are 20 Bible examples that reflect this protocol. They show people who lived with death in mind, learned through loss, or made choices shaped by eternal perspective, not temporary survival. Death is not the enemy of life. It's the revealer of meaning. Those who live wisely are those who understand their days are numbered. Psalms 90:12. Teach us to number our days. Moses writes that wisdom begins when we understand our mortality. This is the heart of the protocol. Ecclesiastes 7:2. Better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, because that is the end of all mankind, and the living puts this in his heart. Funerals teach the soul more than parties. Death sobers us towards truth. Jesus foretells his own death repeatedly. Luke 9:22, Matthew 16:21. He doesn't avoid death. He trains for it. His mission is shaped by it. Paul, to live is Christ, to die is gain. Philippians 1:21-23. Paul is fully aware of his mortality, and then awareness gives him fearless clarity. Stephen's death, Acts 7:54-60. Even while being stoned, Stephen looks into heaven. His body dies, but his soul rises, trained and unafraid. The rich fool's sudden death, Luke 12:16-21. A man builds a bigger barn to store his wealth, but God calls him a fool. This very night, your life will be demanded of you. Job's lament on human fragility. Job 14:1-2. Man is born of woman, few of days, full of trouble. Job reflects deeply on life's brevity. Hezekiah's terminal illness, Isaiah 38:1-5. Told he will die, Hezekiah prays with desperation. Facing death leads to transformation. The thief on the cross, Luke 23:39-43. In his dying breath, he asked Jesus to remember him. Awareness of death led him to salvation. Moses viewing the promised land before death, Deuteronomy 34. Moses doesn't reach the end of the earthly journey, but God honors him, and he dies with vision. Jesus at Gethsemane, Luke 22:42-44. Knowing his death is near, Jesus fully feels the weight and still submits. Death shapes obedience. David's child dies. 2 Samuel 12:15-23. David fasts and prays while the child lives. But once the child dies, he gets up and worships. He accepts death without collapse. Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. Genesis 22. Abraham is willing to face the death of what he loves most, trusting in God's bigger plan. Joseph's final words in Egypt. Genesis 50:24-25. Before death, Joseph makes his family promise to carry his bones to the promised land. He dies with legacy in mind. David reflects on the brevity of life. Psalms 39:4-5. Show me, Lord, my life's end. Let me know how fleeting my life is. The martyrs in Revelation. Revelation 6:9-11. Those who died for their testimony wait beneath the altar. They lived knowing their earthly lives were not the end. Solomon's reflections in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 12:1-7. He reflects on the aging body and inevitable death, concluding that fearing God is the only path of meaning. Jesus raises Lazarus after 4 days. John 11. Lazarus' death becomes a lesson, not just in resurrection, but in the purpose behind timing and trust. Samson's death as sacrificial victory. Judges 16:30. Blind and humiliated, Samson calls on God one last time and dies with more impact than he ever lived. Hebrews 9:27. It is appointed for man once to die. A universal reminder. Death is guaranteed. What comes after is the real test. Death brings focus, not fear. God often speaks loudest near the end of things. The wise don't wait for tragedy. They train while they live. Your readiness for death reflects your clarity about life. All right, warrior, we've unpacked the battle on 2 fronts, the enemies within and the enemies without. It's clear. The war isn't just outside you. The most dangerous battles often start within, with the ego, fear, apathy, bitterness, and self-pity that can quietly sabotage your soul. These internal enemies are crafty. They wear the armor of your own thoughts, feelings, and desires. Recognizing them is step 1. Training to overcome them is step 2. Then there are the external enemies, temptation, distraction, and the lies of this world that pull you off course. But just as Jesus modeled for us in the wilderness, the key is to discern the voice, expose the lies, and stand firm in truth. This isn't just about knowing the enemies, it's about fighting back, expose the internal lies, declare the truth, and most importantly, train your mind and spirit to resist every attack, whether it's from within or without. Now, warrior, it's time to get specific. I want you to take a moment, look within, and ask yourself, which enemy are you facing right now? Is it the ego that's demanding attention, fear that's paralyzing you, or maybe it's bitterness that's silently poisoning your heart? Write it down. Bring it into the light, because when you name the enemy, you gain the power to fight back. Then make a commitment to train against it. Don't wait for the battle to catch you off guard. Every small victory over these internal enemies is a step toward your victory on the outside. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment below. What enemy are you confronting today? How are you training to defeat it? Until next time, expose the enemy, refuse the lie, and guard your gates. This is Metaphysical Boot Camp. I'm Merrill, and this is Battleground. See you on the battlefield.